visions collide. Welcome to Glam Chemist.
Today we are talking to Princess Anne George Azuma, a science communicator and analytical chemist turned formulation chemist in cosmetic science. She shares with us her unique story of being an international student here in the United States and pursuing a degree in analytical chemistry and a career in cosmetic science. I hope you guys enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Welcome back, friends. So thank you for joining us on The Glam Chemist. Please tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm Princess Anne George Azuma. I am a formulation chemist. I like to say that I'm like a science communicator on social media, especially TikTok. I'm Nigerian. I currently work in New Jersey, so I live in New Jersey. I've been in New Jersey for about 4 years now. I moved up here to basically start my cosmetic career. Before that, I was in the South. And before that, I actually lived in Sweden, which is crazy. So I'm Nigerian, like I mentioned. I have a Nigerian background. I grew up in Nigeria as well as Sweden. So my upbringing is kind of like in Africa, in Europe, and then a little bit in America, I will say. But by the time I got here, I was 14 when I got here. So I was a little bit older, but I will say I feel like I probably grew up most of my life in America.
I didn't know that part, that you were like literally international for so long.
Yeah.
How did you find yourself coming to the States to study?
My dad is a diplomat, and when we lived in Sweden, we were there for 3 years. And when our time was coming up, my dad always knew that we were going to go to America for academic pursuit. And so me and my older brother were like gearing up to go to America. And so we started like looking up schools in America. We have a lot of family in America, so it just all depended on where we wanted to be and what school we would go to. And so we found this school in Asheville, North Carolina, and I had family in Raleigh, North Carolina. I was 14 at the time and was starting high school. And so we just started looking up boarding schools because we wouldn't be able to do anything else. So that was how I made it over here to America. I think it was like 2010. It was a long time ago, it feels like.
So you spoke a little bit about your schooling. Where did you end up getting your cosmetic science degree?
So I got my master's at FDU, which
awesome.
is here in Jersey. A 2-year program. I learned so much. I'm such an academician. I'm like, I have to go to school and learn it. You can't just throw me in there and expect me to just do it. Because I know a lot of people just came out straight from college and they basically just have like hands-on experience, but having the theoretical before applying the hands-on experience to it has helped me so much because I know all these information and knowledge and the ingredients. And so now actually getting to play with it helps a lot.
Would you recommend that someone who is hoping to get into cosmetic science pursue education right away? Or did you learn more in industry when you finally had tangible experience with these things? I would love to know where in all of that and all of your travel did science become a part of your trajectory and your goal?
I think I've always liked science. I feel like growing up, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I would say, oh, I want to be a doctor, but I also wanted to be so many different things. I wanted to be a fashion designer at one point. I wanted to be a pastor. I wanted to be a teacher. Like I wanted to be anything and everything. I think I remember 8th grade, we had like a little science project and I was like, science is actually really cool. But I never really thought that that's something I would do. And then I started high school biology that I took and I was like, wow, biology is actually really cool. And I really enjoy this. Learning about proteins. I don't know, proteins are my favorite thing, which is like so weird to say, but I just love proteins. So just learning about that, starting out with biology, I really liked it. And then 10th grade, I had a chemistry class and I was like, wait, I thought I liked biology, but I think chemistry is the one. And I like to say that it actually wasn't love at first sight with chemistry. I feel like, you know, when like a guy approaches a girl and tries to get her attention and the girl's like, no, I'm good. I feel like that was me in chemistry. Like I was trying so hard to get it and chemistry was like, nah, like you're going to have to work hard for this one because it was so hard.
It was so hard.
Yeah, but I loved the challenge. And so because of how hard it was, I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to do this. And I know that if I put my mind to it, that I will be successful in this class. And it ended up working out.
I know you said it was really difficult. How much of that time did you find yourself deciding to become an analytical chemist?
So I didn't decide until I graduated school, which was college. And by the time I got to college, I was like, okay, we're doing this chemistry thing. Chemistry kicked my behind. I mean, I was crying every night. I was staying up late until 4.
No,
But
that's so
yeah,
relatable.
chemistry was not fun. But it took graduating to realize what I really wanted to do. And I was like, okay, well, I have this degree. I did want to go to pharmacy school, but I was like, that's not going to happen. At one point, I wanted to be a doctor, and I was like, that's definitely not going to happen, at least not now. Um, and I was like, okay, well, what can I do with my degree? And it just took me back to my experience in college, anyways. Like in my lab, it was just the experience that I got with wet lab, just doing like titrations, testing the pH of something, having to analyze things. And I was like, okay, well, people do have to do this for different industries. And then I realized that I could probably do that at a pharmaceutical company. And that's kind of how I got into it.
When you found yourself doing analytical chemistry in pharma, what about that did attracted you to that position? Like, what did you enjoy about your time there?
So what I liked most, I think growing up, which was really tough, growing up because I lived in Nigeria, I was fortunate enough, to have a roof over my head and to live comfortably. However, I did see people around me not have that same privilege. And I did see the discrepancy between the rich and the poor, especially in the healthcare system when it came to drugs. They were selling a lot of fake drugs. Your child would be sick, you wouldn't have enough money to actually buy the medicine that they need to help, their sickness. And here you go buying something off the street thinking it's going to help because that's all you can afford. And then that ends up hurting your child even more. So just seeing that really moved me as working as an analytical chemist, because I ended up having to test some of these raw materials that would be used in drugs to make sure that they were in spec and they weren't out of spec, and to make sure that things wouldn't fail and they would pass. So a little bit of that was me thinking like, I am contributing to helping these drugs that are good, be on the market and not, be one of those people that are out here making fake drugs just because they're trying to sell and make a living. So I think part of that was what was pushing me to do that, even though obviously I didn't make the biggest difference, but just having a little bit of a part in that kind of made me keep going and like analytical chemistry.
I love
Yeah.
your approach to your career. You seem incredibly optimistic about what the opportunities are and adjusting to being an international student and coming to the States and all of that. You've done a really good job of remaining positive, and I think that's why you've had so much success in your career and been able to like pivot so easily. So tell us a little bit about being an international student helped you remain in STEM. Is that what you said?
Yes, I think what I try to say is being a STEM student was the best thing for me as an international student in America. Because a lot of people don't really know much about, like obviously studying in the States, because if you're a citizen here, that has nothing to do with you. You know what I mean? However, there are some limitations, especially when it comes to jobs, and obviously your stay being the number one limitation, and just being able to have the same opportunities as your counterparts. With being an international student, you are granted more time. That being said, you have more years to work than someone who's not a STEM student. So, and for so long, I was fighting being a STEM student because I was like, this is so hard. I don't want to do this anymore. And my parents were like, no, you're going to do this. And I'm like, no, I don't want to do this. This is so hard.
So I totally understand what you mean as far as like those long nights. We talk about that a lot in this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Pursuing a career in STEM requires a lot of dedication, a lot
A
of
lot.
time, and many, many tears. So
Yes,
yeah.
many, many tears. That I'll tell you. I've had a tear drop on my test, and just kind of like, when like when paper gets wet, it kind of like rubs off like the ink or whatever. And I'm like, oh, it's rubbing off the grade that I got. That's not that bad. I mean, I don't want to look at it anyways. So once you graduate college, you're given a year to work. And that is something called optical training, optical practice training. I think it's called OPT for short. And basically you're given a year to work. You start looking for places. And a lot of times when you're looking for places to work, They're like, their list of requirements is like, and you better not need a green card. You better not need sponsorship. You better not need this, and that. And it's like already as an international student, you're like, well, that ruins my chances because you only have a year and no one wants you just to work for a year and then that's it. So you really have to take your time to look for these opportunities to make sure that they're aligned with your goals and what you want for yourself. And so, like, given that year, after you've worked for that year, that's it. There's nothing else you can do unless you go back to school, unless your school has been able, or your company has now been able to sponsor you, and now you have more years to stay in the country and continue working for them. Whereas as a STEM student, yes, you have that year, but then after that, you have something called STEM extension, which is basically 2 more years to work. So altogether, you would have 3 years. And so that's what separates you from like a non-STEM international student. And that's why I say that is what has saved me, because it's been able to prolong my stay. Like, I'm still a student, I'm still on a student visa because I'm a STEM student. So I went back to school and then I'm automatically granted another 3 years. And then you get your PhD and you're automatically granted another 3 years. Whereas if you were just like a non-STEM student, you would get 1 year after graduation. Then if you went back for your master's, you would get another year. Then if you went back for your PhD, you would only get a year until you're able to be sponsored by a company. I don't know if that makes
No,
sense.
yeah, that's a great incentive too, because those are resources that, the United States does benefit from as far as
Mm-hmm.
research and having your knowledge available to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know that myself. I think a lot of our listeners might appreciate knowing that, because a lot of that process is so convoluted, and not knowing
Yeah.
what you're even getting at the end. Could you briefly explain, like, what's the one thing you wish you knew that you would want to share with listeners so that they can have an easier process?
Being an international student and having to deal with that visa work is just being in close contact with someone that they call your DSO. So that is someone that would be in contact with USCIS as well as the school. So making sure there's something called an I-20, and your I-20 is basically a document you need to have signed before you leave the country. Otherwise, if that's not signed and you leave the country, there's no way getting back. So it's just making sure to be in close contact with that person and to ensure that you have all these documents signed. And then obviously, making sure when your visa expires. It's supposed to expire every 2 years. So basically that allows you to go back home, renew it, and then come back. But again, you want to have that I-20 form signed so you're able to leave the country and come back in.
Thank you for sharing that. And as far
Yeah.
as finding jobs, how was that process for you? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it was definitely hard. Graduated 2018 of May, did not get a job until March of 2019. Um, but like it was crazy. I had to apply one for like a work visa, but it's called like an EAD. So graduated in May, that came out in September. So then that year is starting from September, and I'm like, I barely have any time left. If I'm not getting a job this year at all, then I have limited time to work. But was able to get a job in March of 2019. And the thing is, once one door opens, so many other doors are going to open. So like that one door just needs to open. And that was basically what happened. That door opened, got that job, learned what I needed to learn. Although I had a goal, and my goal was to learn chromatography, I was able to start learning it at my first job. However, I wanted more money and I wanted to still learn it. So I found another job where I was going to get more money. And then eventually I was going to learn that. When I got to that job, I got more money, more experience, obviously. Then I realized they weren't going to train me on it. And I was like, I'm going to have to go somewhere else. So I'm not just going to stay here and not get what I really signed up for. So then I left. You always want to make sure you're getting more money wherever you're going. I know people are like, oh, well, the morale matters. Yes, of course it does. But you also want to make sure you're being compensated for what you're doing. And so I was like, anywhere I go, it has to be better than the last place. I'm not going to go somewhere that's worse than the last place. When people say like, your best days are always ahead of you and never think they're behind you. That's basically kind of like how I was looking at it. And so I got this third job where I was able to learn more about chromatography and also earn more money. At that job, I was very independent. The training wasn't great, but that was when I realized that I could learn fast on my feet, and I had to basically like pick it up really quickly. So I learned so much, and that was when I gained like all of my experience. And unfortunately, I was actually fired at that job, but thank God that I was fired because that was able to allow me to redirect um, my career to where it is now. So I was able to go back and study for the GRE, get my master's, decide I was leaving the South and moving to Jersey to start my master's and then to also start working at L'Oreal. Without the job that I got fired at, without that, I would have never, I'm pretty sure, gotten that job at L'Oreal because exactly what I learned is what they were looking for at L'Oreal. They just needed me to be that one person. So if I hadn't taken a chance to go to that third job where it was like I guess super individual and I had to learn on my feet, like fast on my feet and just not get as much training, but just to throw myself out there, I probably would have never gotten that job at L'Oreal. So as soon as I got into school and I realized, this is for my master's, so I'm definitely going to be having later classes, like at night, evening classes. So I'm like, I can work during the day. And also being an international student, it's also tough. But there's another thing that you could do in your master's program called CPT, and that's, I think, curricular practical training. And basically, as long as you find a job, you're able to work during the week, just like a normal job that you would have. And thankfully, my grad school was able to have that because a lot of schools don't have that. So what they needed from me was to find a job, to have, that I-20 document and just to have the right credentials. And that's all was needed. It was kind of tasking to get the international department to sign off all the documents and have everything turned in time and stuff like that. So it was a lot of like pulling, but we were able to get it done. And it would be like working during the day and then going to school later. But working at L'Oreal, honestly, I did not think that it was such a privilege until I left. I had no idea. When you have something and you don't appreciate it as much, and then after you leave, you're like, wow, that was actually huge. That was what happened to me. Because for me to have worked at L'Oreal, it basically just fell on my lap as like I just put my resume out there and then a recruiting agency contacted me. They looked at my credentials and they were like, we think you'd be great for this position. It was actually between L'Oreal and Glossier. And I got L'Oreal instead of Glossier. So I never got like an interview with Glossier. And that's just how that happened. And I really do think that it was based on my experience. That was the only thing that enabled me to get in.
I mean, you are in a very interesting position for our industry. Can you tell us a little bit about what it is to be an analytical chemist in cosmetic science and like what that role entails for you?
Yeah. So basically, you could be working for different groups. I work for the raw materials group at L'Oreal, and that just means basically working with those ingredients you see on your ingredient label list. And being an analytical chemist just means analyzing those ingredients, making sure that those ingredients are the right color, the right appearance, their solubility, their purity. So doing these different testing for it, like chromatography, which is basically just identifying molecules within a component. So a lot of people don't like parabens, right? And if a shampoo is claiming that they don't have parabens, you can then use chromatography to show that there are no parabens because if there were parabens, you would see a peak in the results. You know what I'm saying? So just stuff like that, which was really cool to see because then you'd be like, okay, well, they really are claiming, that they don't have this, but they kind of do. So it was really cool to see kind of the behind the scenes of it. Do pH testing, moisture testing, how much water is in this thing. It was really cool.
That's so interesting because I mean, on the ingredient side, like when you're in R&D, you're kind of just hoping that that information, like if you're in a smaller lab or an indie beauty
Mhm.
lab, you're hoping that that information is already provided for you. But the fact that L'Oreal has a part of their campus where it actually tests, and I know that it takes years for them to code an ingredient into their library, right? Yeah.
I actually have no idea how long it takes, but I do imagine that it takes a while.
But I worked in sales for a protein supplier, and
Uh,
a lot of what I was taught about doing masstige and having L'Oreal as a client is that it takes like 2 years for them to code an ingredient because of all the work you're doing. So when we send them an ingredient for testing, they're literally dissecting the entire ingredient to see all of the
Hmm.
levels, and then they choose based on those reports that you would have provided for them if they're going to code and keep that ingredient in their library, which is different from being an R&D lab bench person where you just kind of request a sample and you try it in your formula, and if it works it works, and if it
Yep.
doesn't then it doesn't. So
Yep.
those are the two different perspectives that, like, now that you're at a little bit of a smaller scale, it's two different worlds to see how specific that company in Mastige can be versus how, with the limited resources, you can still use what you know
Mhm.
to apply to the smaller space. So you've done a really good
Yes.
job of having both. I think that a lot of people don't really know a lot about what an analytical chemist can do in a lab, specifically in
Hmm.
our space. But another thing I would ask is, so I did claims where I
Okay.
worked on more of the numerical and quantitative values for things. So a lot of the instruments that you used cross paths with mine, but I wouldn't
Hmm.
consider that analytical, right? That would have,
Well, it depends. By the way, I loved claims.
yeah,
Like in
me
my master's
too.
program, I thought that it would be the most boring class ever, and that ended up being my my favorite
It's
class
fun. There's
ever.
so many toys. You get to play with so many instruments, and like
It's so
it's so
cool.
fun.
Yes.
Yeah, we're like
Yes.
geeking out.
Yeah. And so actually at L'Oreal, whenever my time was coming up and I was like thinking, oh, when I graduate, I'm definitely going to come back. And if I come back, I told myself that I actually wanted to be in the claims department.
There's a lot of different positions in cosmetic science that people don't realize can overlap with a lot of education. Like you
Hmm.
can find, like you said, you started your career pursuing potentially academia and just continuing your higher education and finding yourself in a lab and then finding yourself in a beauty lab. So I think
Hmm.
when we speak about these things, it's helpful for listeners to know that's like you can apply your sciences into so many different fields and
For
titles that you
sure.
might have not even known existed. Like
Hmm.
claims alone, like unless you've done it, very few people know that there's a scientist and a lawyer and a marketing person. Like it's not
Hmm.
just one person doing all of this like documentation.
Yeah.
Um, like compliance lawyers, people do need regulatory and compliance people that know STEM so that they
Hmm.
can actually legitimize those statements before they put them on a bottle and put them in a claim, like put the claim on a bottle. That you can kind of find a different avenue for yourself. If you don't
Hmm.
entirely
Hmm.
love what you studied originally, and maybe you started with chemistry and didn't find yourself going to pharma or didn't find yourself going into regulatory, there are these other little avenues you can pursue. So I appreciate you sharing your story because I haven't spoken to anyone who's done that kind of work. So it's the first time that our listeners get to learn about a whole new career.
So I learned from both, obviously, but I will say if you can afford it, get an education first because understanding the foundation of these ingredients is going to help you a lot more. So when you run into issues, you immediately know, okay, it's because of this, it's because of that. And my current manager, whenever she was interviewing other people, she was like, you are the one that had the least experience, but because of your knowledge, you stood out more than others who had been in the industry for years. And she was like, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but there was someone. So for my final interview, I had to come in and make something. And she was like, you just made something simple. You knew what to do and you knew what these ingredients would do. So you just basically put it all together. The other person who had a lot of experience was making it a lot more complex and was kind of trying to show off and didn't really know what to do with some of the ingredients, like wanted to make it into something. And it was like, this ingredient probably shouldn't be used for that. And it just completely like fell apart for him and didn't work, which doesn't make any sense because that person had so much experience. But here I am, no experience. I come in and I do just the most basic thing because I know this is going to work. You know what I mean? So I think
Yeah.
that just showed knowledge rather than experience because sometimes knowledge could push you a little more or further than experience could, if that makes sense.
No, I love that explanation actually, because I think it applies even in everything as far as products that we're seeing. We're
Mm-hmm.
we're overcom I mean, I'm gonna say this is my opinion. I believe that
Yeah.
we're overcomplicating R&D for skincare
Mhm.
by trying our best to meet all of these expectations that we
Yeah.
believe consumers are looking for. When in reality, if we go back to the bare bones of R&D, and if you tell a chemist to just create a simple formula that's effective, that is where you find the happy place of a product. And I think
Mhm.
that's where the popular products and the most own self-sustaining products are coming from. Like there's there's brands that have been out for literally decades that have never modified their formula for a reason because it's effective and it's simple and it's
And
perfect
it
and it's what you
works.
need. Exactly.
Yeah.
So like I think that's a perfect example that can be even put into like a larger scope of sometimes just going back to the bare bones and being
Mhm.
knowledgeable and knowing those and having the simple, no, I don't want to say simple because it does require a lot of effort, but having like the bare bones and knowing like every intricacy of your terminology and knowing how things are compatible in that way does save you from a lot of hardship in the lab if you don't
It
have that
does.
experience.
Yeah.
Because I can say for myself, like I don't have that technical knowledge, and I've learned a lot on my feet. And I am a person that advocates for simple formulas. I'm such a big person where it's like, I don't take marketing seriously. I will not. I can't do it.
Yeah.
Like if you
Yeah.
want this to be effective and if you want the experience to be nice, like I've spent so much of my career as a product developer because of
Mhm.
that, because I don't have that technical aspect of being on the lab bench. But when it comes to creating a product, I'm always advocating for simplicity over following trends because of the effectiveness and because I trust R&D. I trust a person
Yeah.
like you that went to school and, knows the ins and outs and knows how something wouldn't be compatible and how to troubleshoot a formula when it breaks apart. So I do like that perspective. And I think it actually might motivate some more folks, including myself, to consider higher education if this is something you're serious about, so that you can find yourself in positions to even negotiate. Like you said, if you are knowledgeable and you have these skills and you find yourself in a position that you're better off of someone else, you can even ask for more money or ask for more resources.
Yep.
So definitely for our listeners, take that in stride
Mhm.
and, really consider how pursuing higher education may pay off in the long run. Um,
Definitely.
Hey, Genesis here with a quick update before we dive back in. I'm proud to announce that we've launched the Glam Chemist app. Using the app, you can send in voice, video, or text questions for the podcast and chat and network with other listeners. The app's in beta right now, and your feedback will shape what comes next. So become a part of the experiment and visit the link in our bio today to try out the new app. Now back to the episode. Where are you now, and what do you like most about it?
So I currently work for a chemical distributor and I'm the only formulator, which is so challenging, but also rewarding at the same time. I have this big lab to myself. It's actually so much fun. And I just go in there and I'm just like a mad scientist and I just do whatever. I do what works and I'm like, okay, that doesn't work, whatever. It makes me feel like the dad on Powerpuff Girls, when he's like sugar and spice and everything nice. That's literally me. I'm
Love
like
that.
just at it, like making potions. So because I'm the only formulator, it's given me a lot of experience that I probably couldn't get anywhere else. And I'm so creative with it as well because I can really just do anything. I basically just have to use the ingredients that we carry and just put it in a product. So currently, I've been working on some of the ingredients that we carry, one of which is a UV filter. It's zinc oxide. Obviously, learned how to make sunscreen in school theoretically, right? And not even mineral sunscreens. It was chemical sunscreens that we talked about. And here I am trying to figure out how to make a mineral sunscreen. And those are like so hard to make. So I've been working on that and I've been working on it for a year and a half now. I have two different emulsions, one that's water and oil and water. And that just means when something's water and oil, that just means that the base is oil and you're just adding water droplets to that. And then oil and water, you just have oil droplets suspended in water. I was able to showcase one of the prototypes that I made at Suppliers Day, which was so cool to me. And another cool thing is Danissa Myricks was there, and I will never live this down because that was the best day of my life. I see her from across like the show. And I'm like, she has to come to my booth. So I run toward her and I'm like, please, 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 please come try my products. So she comes over and I tell her about the sunscreen I've been making and I give it to her to try it out. I had the sunscreen that was just like a cream, and then I had it in like a tinted sunscreen with some foundation, some pigment. And she tried both and she was like, this feels so good. She was like, I will never forget that. She was
Like
like,
literally.
you are a rock star. And I was like, what are you talking about right now? Like, my life was made because I just look at her products and I'm like,
Yeah.
she's made some really great products. Like,
I
she
mean,
has
I
a
saw that she
great
was
team.
there. Yeah, I saw that she was there. I
Yeah.
missed out on that one, but yes, it is nice. It's like the time I met Pat McGrath and she was like, "You have great
Yeah.
style." And I was like and I told her I was a
Oh
chemist.
my
She's like, "That's
goodness.
such a cool gig." And we were talking like the fact that I was talking to her about anything,
Yeah.
I was just like, "It's fucking Pat McGrath." Oh
Oh my God, that's
my
amazing.
God.
She's
That's
mother.
so
I
amazing
yeah,
though. See, like
yeah.
look at the opportunities that
I
becoming a
know.
cosmetic chemist and like the way the worlds collide, which brings us to a lovely segue. How did you find yourself doing science communication and, promoting yourself online?
So even before I decided to go to school for it, I just always loved skincare and just loved like sharing my products with my friends and be like, oh, what are you using? I'm using this, I'm using that. And then I suffered from, I don't even know what it was, but I feel like we all went through this. I graduated college and my skin was just like not having it. My skin was going through it, a lot of hyperpigmentation, a lot of breakouts, and I was just trying to figure out what worked. And so in the middle of doing that, I just was like, I actually feel like I have a passion for this. And so because I was able to get my skin from what it was to what it is now, I think that people would look at me with some kind of like credibility, even though I wasn't like an esthetician. It would just be like, oh, like, how do you know what products to use? And I'm like, honestly, it's trial and error. I'm not going to sit here and be like, go use that because you might use that and it's not going to work for you. I might say go use that, yes, but like see if it works for you. So it really was just trial and error. And so because of that, I then was like, should I start posting about this? So on Instagram, I would have this thing called, oh my God, I can't remember what it was. It was like back in 2021. And I think it was like skincare tip Tuesday or something. So I would post every Tuesday on like just like skincare tips. And I just kept doing that. And mind you, TikTok was around. So I don't know why I didn't like pivot and start on TikTok.
Girl, we all missed that boat. All of the older, like
Yeah.
young millennials and like older Gen Z, the way we should have jumped on that one.
But
But we
yeah.
were too cool. We were like too cool to do it. Like, oh no, I'm not a TikTok person. Like,
Yeah.
what were we
We were
doing?
probably like, yeah, TikTok is for the youngins. And it was like, no, we were the youngins and we like
I
we should have done
know. We
that.
feel so
Yeah,
old for no reason. Yeah.
I know.
Okay, sorry. Sidebar.
No, you're good. And so eventually after doing that, I was like, okay, it's getting really lengthy. It's just too much. No one's probably paying attention to this. It's just a story and then that's it. Like it has to be something more than that. So then I was like, well, let me just take it to TikTok. Then I just made a video of me talking about um transitioning from a moisturizer you use in the summers to winter, depending on where you are. And then after posting that, I posted a few, and once I started learning more about ingredients, I would kind of break down ingredients of like products and what they're doing. And then my big break was attending Suppliers Day in 2021 and doing a chemist workshop, which is like the first experience I ever had with formulating. And so I just recorded that and posted it, and everyone was like, oh my God, this is so cool. You made a cream. That's so cool. We want you to post more of these. And I'm like, y'all don't know that I literally don't have a formulation lab until literally the next year. So I won't be able to post more, but I was like, I could just post more about products and just break that down. So but between that time and then waiting until I was able to get in my formulation lab course, I would just post about products and break down what each ingredient was doing and what categories you need to look out for in certain products. So basically, just doing that and building and just like trying to break down the science, I guess, of cosmetics and of your ingredient labels.
A lot of people have been engaging with content like that too because it kind of simplifies. First, it's nice to go to an expert. It's nice to go to
Yeah,
someone who understands and can then, translate that information to a more easy way of communicating things. But the fact that you were able to build an audience with it is really, really cool. So, what are your goals for the platform? Like, what are you hoping to do with it as it grows?
I think I'm still struggling with my audience and just having a community because it just feels like I don't go on there and I have like a group of people I talk to. I feel like it's just always a new set of people. And I don't necessarily want it to be a new set of people every time. I want it to be the same people, the same community that is kind of building that knowledge, I guess, that I'm like spreading. Or also just seeing what I posted last time and having that like insight be applied to what I'm doing now, if that makes sense. Like we talked about surfactants the other day. Well, I'm making like a wash system. So obviously I'm going to be using surfactants. How can you apply that to that? I don't want it to be so much of like a lecture. I want it to cosmetic science for dummies, if that makes sense. But it's been hard in that sense, but I do get some new followers every day. And I'm just like, okay, this is great, but how do I keep the same people coming back? You know what I mean? So that's been tough. But either way, I just go on there and I just say what I know and I just make stuff because it really does make me happy to make stuff and just to put things together. So yeah, that's just what I've been doing.
I appreciate you sharing that because that's how I found you. Like, seeing you and some other folks now that are promoting online and like really using their platform to highlight what we do when in a world when I was coming up, or like it's still, we're in a world where like very few people know what we do, and now you
Mm-hmm.
can actually have like a representation of what it is, like as opposed to everyone saying you're a cosmetologist. You can
Yeah.
actually like, physically show them a video of like, no, this is what we do, and there's people that are knowledgeable in this field, and then this is what someone does in this part of the field. Like, it's nice to have those examples, and I think for your followers as well, it's probably helpful to know like there's an option again for a career there.
I just wanted to say something about that cosmetology part because I don't know why, but for the longest time that would piss me off. I'm like, I'm
It
not a
still
cosmetologist,
does.
and no shade to cosmetologists because I can't
Never.
even do what y'all do. But like the thing is, I'm not even doing what y'all are doing. So like, don't call me a cosmetologist. You know what I mean? Like, it's just very different, and it
Yeah,
would make me
it's
so
hard.
mad. It would make me so
It
mad.
still
Yeah,
does. Like sometimes I'm just like, I can't have this conversation with you because it's
yeah.
like I understand people not knowing. I get that. But
Mhm.
it is very difficult when you've worked your ass off the way we have. And it's
Yeah.
like, again, no disrespect to estheticians and cosmetologists. Like, that's a whole different thing that I know I can't do. Like, I know that
Mhm.
I can't go and help someone with their hair. You don't want me to. I'm not gonna get it
Right.
right.
Yeah.
But like, when you've worked so hard, and even the just the descriptor of chemistry is so difficult that like I try to wear that, which is hard because it's hard to explain to people and get respect for it, but I try to wear that
Yeah.
on my chest at all times. I am a chemist. I worked really hard to become a chemist. Like, please
Yes.
respect the fact that I'm working, yes, in this field, but I am a chemist, and it's not pharmaceuticals and it's not cosmetology. It is cosmetic science.
Mhm.
But like, you can't really say all that to someone that's just being sincere, but it does piss me off in a
I
way.
know, because then
Yeah.
you feel bad because you give them attitude, and it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just, it's more so just like if I'm telling you that this is what I do and that's not what I do, then like please respect that.
I know. It's so painful sometimes.
Yeah,
It's so
yeah.
relatable. What would you describe your job as?
I feel like it's so like I'm just like I'm a formulation chemist. Like I would say that I formulate products for skin and hair, and that could be makeup, that could be sunscreen, that could be lotion. You know, like I basically I said like I put ingredients together and I form a product. And then people think like you're like DIY. And I'm like, no, it's not DIY. It's very different from that. Like I very much have a lab that has been licensed. And I use ingredients from suppliers. I'm not using the oils from my cabinet. And this is like I'm not trying to
No,
throw
I hear
shade.
you. You're preaching to the choir
It,
right now. I'm
yeah,
glad
if
someone's
people
saying it.
yeah, because I'm like, honestly, even as a Black woman, I like say this a lot, and I'm like, I pray that God will release Black women from the shackles of like all this natural. It has to be this butter, that oil. And I'm like, you're just making yourself a grease ball. Like, it's fine if
Yeah.
you really like butters and oils, but they're just so afraid of chemicals. And I'm like, those are chemicals.
Yeah.
They're natural, but they are everything's a chemical. Like,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, I totally understand because I'm, again, like I told you, I'm a big advocate for simple formulas that make sense.
Mhm.
It's like one of my biggest pet peeves when someone asks me to do something natural, or if it doesn't have a proper descriptor for us, please don't use the word. Like, please don't ask that of me because I think
Yeah.
my job as a product developer has always been marrying what marketing's expectations are and what R&D's capabilities are. So I've
Mhm.
always been that bridge of like, yes, I know that you want everything under the sun, but I'm going to tell you that tangibly and with the resources we have without magic, this is what R&D can create. A lot of my career has been managing those expectations of like, yes, you can have the magic pill, but the magic pill is we can only do it within these limits. And it's very hard to have that conversation with people that don't understand. All due respect
Mhm.
to marketing people as well, and all due respect to
Mhm.
consumers. And what I like to call kitchen chemists, which are the ones that, create their own products. A lot of them
Yeah.
do have some sort of knowledge when it comes, or are very eager to pursue the knowledge that we know.
Mhm.
With all due respect to all those people, there are limitations with the resources we have. There are only so many things you can put into a formula before it starts to break. You have to be
Yes.
respectful of those limitations of each formula, and you have to, if you're looking for efficacy, you have to choose efficacy over or a consumer request because a consumer need will be met with efficacy if you allow us to
Mhm.
do what we have to do. But if you're kind of reaching for the sun because that's what you read or heard, I want you to show me the formula. I want you to tell me how effective it is. I want you to tell me the touch and feel, the consumer experience,
Mhm.
and tell me really, really how you feel about it. Because we can make something natural 100 times a day. That doesn't mean it's
Yeah.
going to be effective. It doesn't mean it's going to have a great
Yeah.
feel, and it doesn't mean that it's going to work. Like, that's
The
my soapbox. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on
Yeah.
that because the touch and feel is so real because tell me that butter is not going to solidify and like not be gritty. It's gonna be gritty. There's certain ingredients you can use to delay that. And if it's just all natural, you are going to be working with an oil that has so much butter in there, and that's gonna be gritty. And you're gonna be thinking nothing of it, which that shows a sign of instability. And I also want to mention that, listen, I am not afraid to admit that I once was like, maybe I could just make it myself. Maybe I could just put some oils here and there. I honestly did that. I did that before I like got my master's and was like, what was I thinking? I
Yeah.
was like, I was crazy for thinking I could ever do anything. So
Just
I did
making
think about it.
potions, just like
Yeah, I did think about it, and that's okay to think about. So I'm not throwing shade at anyone because trust me, I was there. But I also feel like there's a lot of pressure as a Nigerian woman to also resort to using naturals because oh, we're African. We have natural remedies and this and that. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. But you could have natural remedies and you could also go to the doctor at the same time. You know what I'm saying? You can get those pills or you
mhm.
could use that natural, but that's fine, but there
There's
has to be a
also
balance.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
also an abundance of resources. So many of our really good ingredients come from the
Mhm.
continent. Like you can find so many good, like I get why people would say like yes, natural, but there is a stable version of that ingredient that you can use in your
Yes.
formula that makes
Hmm.
it that much more efficacious and it'll work for you.
Hmm.
So that brings me to a really fun question. What is a common like beauty formulation like misconception that you find yourself answering often?
That Black people don't need sunscreen. I'm like, I'm a Black woman. I wear sunscreen. Like the way I apply sunscreen, you would think that
That you're going
I like
like
it's
down to Bermuda. Like
you would think I have like type 1 skin, but I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm applying this
well, that's
every
why
2
your
hours,
skin
just
is
like the
so
bottle says.
nice. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm doing exactly what this bottle says because one, I also have a lot of hyperpigmentation. So a lot of times it's honestly for like appearance because I'm like, I don't want my hyperpigmentation to linger. So I'm going to use this sunscreen because then that reverses every single thing that I'm doing. If I'm going to be using vitamin C, this, retinol, this, all of that, and step outside without sunscreen on, might as well just stop using that. Might
Yeah,
as
you're
well.
undoing it all. Or you're
Yeah.
finding yourself like repairing the same problem over and over and over again.
Yep. Yep.
Wow, this has been a lot of fun. And I love that we're kind of like locked in, like we agree on
Yes.
a lot of what we've spoken about.
Yeah,
And I think
we see each other.
you're in a place right now, especially because you've been doing cosmetic science for a bit. I think everyone kind of gets to that point where they're like, there's that moment at the beginning where you're like, this is so much fun. I'm having such a great time. I want to learn about beauty and everything. And then when you peek behind the curtain, you start to see the real, and you find
Yeah,
yourself finding the same frustrations that we've just described. Or just like my big thing now is I don't spend a lot of money on skincare at all.
I don't
I
either.
find like one of my favorites right now is Good Molecules.
I love good
Super
molecules.
affordable, incredibly effective, very simple. And like I look for a simple formula before I look for like something that people are talking about. And
Yeah.
thankfully, like with our background, you can just turn it around and start looking at the ingredients and know what's actually effective. Um, but yeah, I've found myself like not spending as much as I used to on beauty because I came from, like I'm a millennial and YouTube. We used to spend money on everything, like every
Everything.
palette, every skincare brand, like 5 mascaras. Like we used to overconsume so many things thinking that they were the best. So I
Hmm.
find myself doing less of that. What do you think you do now that's a little bit different from when you were starting out, now that you know what you know?
Probably that because I used to, this is a great brand, SK2, I think is what they're called. I used to spend my coins on one of their like essence toner that was like, I'm pretty sure it's probably $100 now. It was 80 at the time, which was like years ago. Only to realize, girl, I don't need that. I literally just don't. I don't need that. And I also used to have so many steps in my routine. I used to have like a 9 step routine. And now
Wow.
I'm like, cleanse, moisturize, protect.
You have
Mm-mm.
to cleanse, moisturize, treat, and treat meaning hydrate, retinol, vitamin C, not all at once. Pick
Yep.
a day, do one. Pick a day of the week and do one.
Pick
And
a
then,
day for real. Yeah.
protect. Find yourself. That's what, protect is having a barrier so that all of those things that you've just put on your face remain on your skin and can be
Mhm.
absorbed and can do what they have to do. I think
Yep.
people also expect instant gratification from
Yep.
products, which, frankly, if you see something too quick, I promise you it's caffeine. And what does caffeine do to us? It works for 20 minutes and then it wears out. So don't be so eager to think that this is like the best product I've ever tried, only
Yeah.
because, it's there for a reason. Yeah, that's a whole other conversation.
And you don't give it enough time to work. Like I know someone that's like, oh, I just changed my moisturizer. Well, how long were you using that moisturizer for? 2 weeks. Now I'm going to use a new one. I'm like, that is crazy. You don't even give your skin enough time to breathe and to like get used to like that's crazy. That is crazy. You know what I used to do? And someone told me recently, because I'm always rubbing in my sunscreen, and they're like, girl, you're not supposed to rub it in. You're supposed to just put it on and let it sit and like
Yeah,
form a film.
cast.
And I'm like, when I make sunscreen, I know this because I include film formers because of that exact reason. You want it to form a film. And I know that when I make it, but never did I think that me rubbing it in would be an issue. And I was like, girl, I've been rubbing it in every time. Like I'm like, and I'm sure as I'm doing that, I'm like
Yeah.
breaking, you know what I'm
That
saying?
has to be a video. You have to make that a video now. Like you have to
Okay.
talk about how to properly apply
Okay.
sunscreens, given that you're currently working on it, because
Yeah.
that's a big one even, yeah, that's a big one even for moisturizing. Like you're not supposed to like first of all, you're causing micro tears. Don't pull on your face. Like you're
Mm-hmm.
causing micro wrinkles. Be kind to your skin. It's the only one you got. Be respectful. But also like
Yes.
when you're hydrating, I think people don't leave products on enough. Like they'll put on a hydrating product and then like immediately puts makeup on top and not let it
Mm-hmm.
like do its thing. You can only
Yeah.
have a plump, nice, clean surface if you allow the moisturizer to settle and give you exactly what you need so that you have an even canvas before you go and put on makeup. But now we're just preaching to people.
You
But
know
it's
what I also don't like? I'm sorry. Now,
no, go
like,
for
you
it. No,
really
this is
got
let's
me.
do it.
And yeah, now I'm like in the zone. What I also don't like is when people mix their products, like when they mix their foundation and I know like a certain brand had been
I'm
like
a
promoting it.
mixer.
Like,
I do that. I do
oh
that.
my God, no.
Yes. But it's like
I'm
I
like,
know which
but
ones
what do
go
you think
together
that,
though. Like I know
no,
which ones go together. But
but I'm
it's
like, what
like
do you think it's gonna do if you just like put it, okay, say like you mix, I don't know, you have like a milk and you have foundation and you just want to mix the milk and foundation together. But what happens if you just put the milk on and then you wait and then you put the foundation? Is it not going
I
to get the same
do.
effect?
I have started doing that where like I'll do because I used to mix my I used to mix my hyaluronic acid with my my primer. So like okay, this is like such a bad thing and I'm gonna admit it right now. So Elf has like a milk equivalent to their gripping primer,
Okay.
which has a very tacky texture for a reason, and I understand that. It's very thick and viscous so that once it dries, it holds on to the foundation. But I hated the texture. So I
Hmm.
always have to put like hyaluronic acid serum or like my primer spray on top
Hmm.
of it. And then I just find myself mixing because of textures. Like that's my big thing. It's not really like
Yeah.
me trying to make like the magic potion that works. It's more just like I don't always love how people make products feel, and it's not the consumer experience that I'm looking for. So I
Yeah.
do
That makes
mix. I'm sorry, but please tell me what your
yeah.
pet peeve is.
No, no, that's okay. I just was like, because I've never thought to mix, and I don't know why. I've just never thought to mix. I'm just like, oh, I'll apply it, and then I'll apply it on. But it makes sense if
You're
you
doing it
like have
right
an
though.
issue with
You
if you
what
have
you
an
did
issue
makes
with
sense.
textures. If you have an issue with textures, I feel like that makes sense. I never thought of it like that. Which I think is another thing where I think the industry is moving toward. I don't want to say a lot of neuro divergent people. Sometimes they might have issues with texture, so it's also like trying to cater to them. So when making sure that the textures don't throw them off and they're not feeling some type of way when they put it on. I think it's really cool that we are now doing that and like
Mhm.
using that as our audience because for so long our audience has only just been like one type of people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and run by men. So that's
Yes.
a whole other
There's so
conversation.
many men in
That's a
this
whole other
industry.
that's a
It's
whole other
actually
conversation.
insane. I will be like in meetings and be like, what are you doing here? Like, what do
Yeah.
you have to say? Like,
All of the brands that you think are made for women that somehow you would assume were created by women are absolutely not.
yeah.
Um,
All the VPs are men. I'm like, this is
Bald
crazy.
men at that, telling you
Bald
about
men.
skincare and hair care. That's
Yeah.
always the funny one.
Yeah.
Sorry to the community, but it's always it's true. They're always
Yeah.
bald men making the decision saying, I don't know if women would buy that. I
Right.
don't think I don't think people are gonna buy that. It's like, oh, really? You don't think
How
they're
would you
gonna buy a
know?
texturing spray for their hair at all? No?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't think so either.
That's so funny.
It was a really fun conversation, and I'm glad that we were able to laugh through some of it because
I
a
know,
lot of
same.
it you just deal with it by yourself in the lab or even with like family when you're trying to explain yourself, and
And
it's
they just
always just
don't get
like,
it.
yep, okay, yep,
Yeah.
sure, like, uh-huh,
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
I just worked really hard on that, but sure, let's just,
Yep.
like I'll go to stores and I'll like point out products that I've helped make and like feel like that's when they finally understand what I mean by
That's
cosmetic
such a
chemist.
flex, by the way. Like, what? Like, that is so cool to be like, yep, worked on that. And like, you can't just
It's
drop
so
that. And
cool.
like, that's insane. Yeah,
It's
that's
really
really cool.
fun.
So
Yeah,
cool. Listen, if you ever have children too, like, it'll be the coolest thing. Because
it
if
is
you have a
cool.
daughter, could you imagine like your daughter being into makeup or skincare and you're like, yep, I helped make that? Like,
That's
she's gonna be like,
true.
I have the coolest mom.
That's
I
so
know
cool. Yeah, you're
someone
right.
that worked on some of the La Roche-Posay like tinted sunscreens and stuff like that. She's a black woman, and I'm like,
Yeah,
you are so cool.
that is
And she's
so
like, my
cool.
daughter doesn't think that, and I'm like, I think that, and your
Yeah,
daughter's gonna think that when she's older. Right now, she's looking at you like you're not cool because she's at that age, but
yeah.
when she gets older, she'll be like, wow, this is actually really cool.
When I was really eager about my industry was to work for Fenty and to work for
Hmm.
Kosas. No, is it Kosas that owns them?
It is Kosas.
Yeah, Kosas, but they were really competitive to get into, but that was like my dream. Yeah, like I know some folks that worked on It Cosmetics when it first launched, and that was really cool. And Fenty Beauty when it first launched. Oh, the best kept secret when they did
Yeah,
the Beyonce brand, where no one could tell you no one would tell you who worked on it until I think I learned
crazy.
last Suppliers Day, where they finally started whispering, like, "Yeah, we worked on that one." And I was like, "Oh my
Yeah,
God."
I'm
I,
like, why did I
I would have
not get a phone
screamed it.
call?
I would have never been able to keep that in my like I would have never
No, same. That's
that.
probably why. Mind you, they would never reach out to me because they have no idea who I am, and like I just don't do that as a living. But if I were to ever be contacted by Sacred, I
Any
would
of
have to
them.
be locked up for a year if because my mouth, like I would be telling so many people.
I wouldn't be able that NDA would like I'd be the first one to fuck up that NDA. Like I'd be the first one
Yeah.
to be like, so you know what I'm working on right now? And it's actually and actually it got approved and like you know what that meant is that it got approved by Beyonce. It didn't just get approved by
Yeah.
her brand manager. It got approved by her. Like I would have never stopped talking about
By
it.
B herself. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
It's
That's
so
so
funny.
funny.
I do want to revisit
Yeah.
something because I realized you said that you wanted to pursue fashion at some point, but like cosmetic science is such a nice marrying of the fashion industry and science. So it's like
Hmm.
you did actually pursue that. And then, even the idea of you wanting to become a pastor because you're in communications, you're still speaking and preaching and you're still sharing your
Relaying.
story. So you've managed to do all of that. I wanted to point that out that
Yeah.
your aspirations may have seemed broad, but it seems like now with your career, you're doing exactly what you wanted to do. So that's really
Also like
cool.
it.
I love
Yeah.
that. Where could our listeners find you and like tell us a little bit about where to find your content?
So I'm, it's a mouthful. So I'm
Go
Princess
for it.
Anne George Azuma on both TikTok and Instagram. And on TikTok is where I mostly post about what I'm doing in the lab when I'm formulating or just talking about cosmetics and skincare and science. So that's probably where you could communicate with me the most and find more of my content, I would say, is TikTok. And on Instagram, I'm just a baddie. So you're not going to get some of that science stuff over there. But if you want to follow me and see
Stop by for a
what
look.
a baddie scientist does, then be my
I love
guest.
it. She wears a lab coat and she can stunt on you real quick. I love
Yes.
that. We'll definitely have some folks follow you on TikTok and hopefully see more information from you and build that community that you were talking about. Repeat
Yeah.
it, people that either have questions or want to learn more, that they can definitely go check out your TikTok. Thank you so much for joining me. This was a really fun conversation, and I think this is like the most honest we've had in a little bit where you've been
Okay.
really real about, all of your experiences, the losses and the wins. So thank you so much
Mhm.
for sharing your story. And I hope to have you back soon. So I
Yes, I hope
appreciate
to
you.
be back.
Yeah,
Yeah, I appreciate you too. This was such an opportunity, and I'm so grateful to have this platform to tell my story. And I hope it does resonate with someone. If I could help anyone, if I could help just one person, I'm
yeah,
happy with that.
I'm sure it will. You had a lot to share and you've lived a very full life and like you've done a lot of really incredible things with your
Thank
short
you.
time, like building your career because you just got your master's degree not that long ago and you've
Yeah.
managed to, reach really, really far with that. So thank you for sharing. I'm proud to announce that you can find the Glam Chemist Podcast on any platform that shares podcasts. You can also find us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Lemonade. Be sure to follow our content so that you know who our new guests might be every week. Also use that platform to ask any questions or suggest anyone that you would like to participate in the podcast. This entire platform is for you. We will work together to build this community, and my goal is to share all the information you might need. So feel free to ask. I'll do my best to speak to those folks so that we can all share in the conversation. New episodes will be released every Wednesday. You'll hear some familiar voices and find some new ones. The Glam Chemist Podcast is a Hija de Lolitas production. The episode's jingle was created by Producer AI. Recording and editing is done by your host, Genesis Velasquez.